Ugh. Okay, let's get this over with. Ugh, Captain Marvel's movie I really was not looking forward to watching because of how bloated and controversy and stupidity it was surrounded by, and well, I ended up seeing it anyway and came out with more reasons as to why I didn't want to watch it. So, if you've been loving Under a Rock for the past couple of months, Captain Marvel is the newest MC Marvel movie which is also a prequel to the Marvel movies set before the events meant to build up and be set before the events of Avengers Endgame, and stars Brie Larson as Carol Danvers in this mediocre attempt at female empowerment superhero movie. Ugh. Before I go into this movie, let me get my positives out of the way. Samuel Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and that was pretty much it. That Ben Mendelsohn was he's one of those actors where you put him in anything and he puts in as good a performance as he can. And so yeah, how do I like the movie? Mediocre in every sense of the word. It's not as terrible as I personally think it is. Actually, I don't know. Maybe it's worse, but it's definitely not good. That's for sure. And so it's plot. For the plot, it starts off in plot summary. Yeah, spoilers by the way, because this movie is a retcon and a half for the MCU. If you've been as invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as me and others have since the Phase One days, this movie's gonna piss you off. It really does. And so it starts off with Brie Larson as this Carol Danvers, or she goes by throughout more than 2/3 of the movie, Veers, who goes off, who's part of a member of the Kree military, the blue aliens from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and she's with Jude Law and this squad of Kree soldiers that go out to investigate a missing colony, and we're introduced to the Skrulls, which are the rival alien groups to the Kree in the comic books, and and yeah, they get ambushed. Everything goes wrong. The Skrulls capture Veers, and apparently she's actually suffering. She's an amnesiac. Everything goes wrong. She breaks out of the ship. The ship crashes over Earth. She crashes into a blockbuster and slowly starts getting her memories back. She ends up fighting against Skrulls here and there. Eventually, she meets up with Sam Jackson as played by Nick Fury, who's been de-aged to look younger than he is. And then, of course, and then after that, they go to a military compound where Carol Danvers was last seen on Earth for a special aviation project where we meet, of course, a cat named Goose, an orange tabby, which sadly becomes a joke that the movie uses and abuses throughout the whole entire thing. It's funny at first, but then gets very, very, very tedious. And of course, Veers learns who she really is, and the Ben Mendelsohn's chasing after them, who's the Skrull leader, Talos or Talos, however you say it. Awkward jokes ensue, and of course we meet Maria Rambeau as well as her daughter Monica Rambeau. And yes, there's many reasons as to why this does not work. And they learn, and Carol eventually gets her memories back, and that she used to work for a guy named woman named Wendy Walters, or as she's known in this movie as Captain Marvel. Again, we'll get into reasons as to why that did not work either. And of course, a bunch of flashbacks of Carol being put down and talked down to by men, and so on and so forth. And eventually, big they go into space where they find that Marvel was working with the Tesseract, one of the Infinity Stones. Again, get to that in a minute. And there's a and of course we eventually and of course before that we find out at the Rambo house that the Skrulls are really not the bad guys after all. Instead, they're refugees or she's. And of course, they find like they get to Marvel's alien, who's really an alien, and a Kree, one of the Kree specifically. They go to the ship. There's a battle with Jude Law and the other Kree, because it turns out they've been the bad guys all along. Ronan the Accuser makes a cameo for about 5 seconds for no reason. Carol eventually unlocks her full power, goes Super Saiyan, beats the crap out of everyone. The Kree leave, and she goes along with the Skrulls to fight in space for the next 20 or so years. And then of course, Cat of course scratches Nick Fury's eye out. Again, we'll get that to that in a minute. And post-credit scene of Carol showing up with the Avengers in the midst of an Endgame, where they find his pager, and where's Fury? She says. Again, so many problems with this movie. Oh my god! I forgot to say this at the beginning of the movie review, but just to preface this entire thing. This was a movie I desperately did not want to review. Doubly did not want to see for a litany of reasons. And if you've been trying to follow and comprehend this plot summary and how enthused I sound, you can understand why. Ever since this movie's announcement, it's just been one show after another. From Brie Larson making rather racist, sexist comments about who can enjoy and criticize movies, to the very, very flaccid marketing since the very first trailer, and well, we all know where that went, to accusations on both sides, mostly one in regards to with most of the faults being on one side as regards to the movie's appealing to and made for, and so on and so forth. And yeah, the movie was just not worth it. This was not a good setup for Infinity War, especially since it contradicts so much. If yeah, I can barely focus on talking about this movie because there's so much wrong with it. Like, in terms of camera work and setup, it's fine. In terms of acting, it's mostly fine. Again, Ben Mendelsohn and a lot of the other characters. The problem with the acting in this movie is that they go on a lot about Carol Danvers controlling her emotions, and because she's too emotional or some shit, when she's really the most wooden character in the whole thing. There are some nice scenes here and there, especially with her and Monica Rambeau, and they're fine. When Sam Jackson isn't going cuckoo over the cat, he's fine. In a lot of ways, it feels like a very average Phase 1 Marvel movie. And its position in the franchise it further harms it. And, yeah. And let's just be real here. This movie's not Captain Marvel, it's Captain Mediocrity Squared and Retcons. Okay, this movie is just chock full of retcons, but before I get to that, let me get to the agenda pushing. Yes, I don't know who, you'd have to be blind to not see it, but this movie is very much pushed with an SJW turd weight feminist agenda. Because let's be honest here, this has been going on for a while where Hollywood does not understand how to write female characters, and I've seen two based on comic books and manga of the last couple of years that did it well. Wonder Woman, and most recently, Alita Battle Angel. I know it's probably going to sound very cheap and to compare the three together, but if you just watch all three of them, it's night and day the differences in the writing. Carol Danvers is just boring in this movie, not helped by Brie Larson's wooden performance. There are some scenes where she does sound like she's having fun and doing good, but for the most part, it just comes off as very flat a lot of the time. And the jokes just go on and on, especially with that fucking cat. Ugh. Like, seriously, Marvel does not know how to balance their jokes anymore. The only one that I swear, ever since Phase 1 ended, it's been one joke fest after another. Like, can you have some levity? And yeah, they and let's be honest here, if Marvel really wanted to be pushing this movie to be as woke as they want it to be, they would have had Monica Rambeau be Captain Marvel in this movie, who was one, a woman, and two, she's black, and three, she was Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers. And I would argue that Carol Danvers was written far better when Chris Claremont wrote her back in the 70s. The movie's trying to be a female empowerment woke fest, but it fails at it because it rewrites and treats characters as stereotypes to appeal to a damn quota. Like, here, look at for in regards to Carol and Monica. Okay, in the comics, Monica Rambeau, of course, as I said, was Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers, and also she had both a mother and a father, and the father, Frank, I believe his name was Frank Rambeau. I think that was his name. Yeah, Monica worshipped the man like a hero because of his work as a firefighter. Where is he in this movie? Nowhere. Instead, they make her and Maria Rambeau into the single mother stereotype. And then, of course, they do the same with Carol Danvers, who originally, in the comics, she and her father had a very good relationship, and the father and Mr. Danvers was a nice guy. Whereas more recently, in Marvel Comics, they've since soured that relationship by making Carol Danvers one of the most unlikable fascistic wenches in the entire comic industry, and changing the father to be an alcoholic dickhead. Because God forbid anyone in this damn movie or in Hollywood these days have a respectable father figure to look up to. And then, of course, Captain Walter Marvel, who's from what I understand, is one of the most important superheroes in all of the Marvel comic universe, is instead gender-bended for no reason to a Wendy Marvel, and is just there to be killed off and ultimately be nothing more than a setup for the movie's rather disjointed plot. Again, what were they doing here? Like, I really hate to let the SJW alarm bell ring continuously, but I've had a problem with the Marvel movies for a while now when it comes to social justice. Not just the comics, but even the movies too. The movies, for the most part, have been rather low on being politically ham-fisted, but I saw the red flags coming with even Doctor Strange. When Doctor Strange came out and they recast it and they casted the Ancient One to be played as a Celtic woman instead of, the old Asian warrior that he was in the comics, that was a red flag. And they tried to be funny about it when they had Doctor Strange come into the monastery and be like, and he thinks that the old Asian dude in one corner is the ancient one, and they poke fun at that. Yeah, if a movie, you're not funny. You were not funny with that. If you were gonna, be diverse and whatnot, and be loyal while being diverse, you could have, been loyal to the comics, which were diverse already. And now this movie. Oh, and Black Panther, that one had a lot of silly things too, with the whole white colonizer shit. Even though Africa has pretty much sold off its own people for generations and is still doing it right now, white people or otherwise. So yeah, this movie is in every sense an SJW cringe fest, despite what some people may think is the contrary. And it's very obvious, and the fact that they tokenize these characters to such an insulting degree is frankly stupid. I admit I may not be the biggest comic, not I may not be the most knowledgeable person when it comes to comic books, but at the very least, I like to see the source material, transcribed into the films as they should respectively be. And I'm sorry, but if your idea of Marvel, but if your idea of diversity is replacing already diverse ones with other people, then, well, you've completely lost me. And of course, making, what already respectable characters with a solid background into even more tokenized stereotypes. And also the retcons. Oh boy, the retcons. Like I said, if you've been involved with these movies like as long as I have, you're gonna be seriously pissed off. And there were multiple times in Captain Marvel where I just gave up the middle finger and said, "Fuck you, movie." First off, before that one, they let me finish this one. I have another point to make with regards to the forced politics. Apparently, Captain Marvel had the Tesseract, even though Shield and the Starks had it for years. How did Marvel get it? What did Howard Stark? Yeah, he had. I could have sworn he and Shield had the Tesseract. How did she get it? What did Howard Stark owe her a favor or something? When does that happen? I don't get it. Hell, they even crashed with the Tesseract in Captain America. Now I remember. Captain America crashed with the Tesseract in Avengers in the first Captain America movie. And also they do this bullshit where, and of course Ronan the Accuser's in the movie for a brief 5-minute cameo, and he contributes nothing. He's just there to say hi, bye. And of course, we all know he dies in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, so any connection he may have had with Captain Marvel is ultimately worthless. And then, of course, there's a bit with Sam Jackson where he's looking up old photos of Carol Danvers, and apparently she had the call sign Avenger on her F-15 in a photo, and implies that Nick Fury got the inspiration for the Avenger initiative from Carol Danvers, even though they already had a movie about that. Hey, Marvel, Disney, you already had a movie that set up the Avengers. It's called Captain America: The First Avenger. God damn it. Hey. And also, speaking of Fury, remember that nice, nuanced scene in Winter Soldier where where Nick Fury tells Steve, "The last time I trusted someone, I got my eye." destroyed, and now he wears the eye patch because of it. Yeah, they completely ruined that. You want to know what happened? The fucking cat scratched it out. Thanks for the shirt. Thank you. The shirts. I like the shirt. Yeah, I don't care if the cat was a freaking alien the whole time. It's still stupid. Like you completely ruined a scene that had a good nuance to it, especially in regards to Nick Fury as a character and in the job position he's in, and you completely desiccated that, all for the sake of a damn joke. Why? And also, yeah, they completely rewrite the Skrulls in this movie to be these fearsome alien shapeshifters who, along with the Kree, are both rivals to each other, committing massacres against each other on a daily basis. To be alien refuge, to be an analogy for refugees and illegal aliens, and the Kree keeps going after them. Marvel, Disney, we get it. You don't like Donald Trump. Orange man bad. You wanted Hillary Criminal Clinton to win. Move the fuck on already. Duh. So yeah, there's this. Other than a few nice bits here and there, this movie was mediocre. At this point, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I think it's honestly even below average at this point. So yeah, it's a very weak setup for Endgame, and effects wise, there are some times where the effects are good, like the spaceships and how they look, but then there's the shots where Carol Danvers goes all Super Saiyan with her powers, and by the way, are how she gets her powers or don't make a damn sense, because I could have sworn Captain Marvel gave them to her in the comic books. And yeah, there are shots in this movie, especially in space, where they have the space battle where she just torches everything, and it and there are some CG shots that are so bad that Green Lantern would like an apology. Yeah, I said it. Don't care what anyone says. That's what it felt like to me. And so yeah, it has some decent stuff in there, but for the most part, the movie does in fact have a lot of problems, both in characters and the fact that the movie likes to pretend it's as woke as it is when really it's not. And yeah, it's not good. And of course, and as I said earlier, this movie was mired in controversy since the marketing happened, and of course, Brie Larson and her stupid comments, and of course, you have two sides in this. You have the one side who, at this point, I can hardly blame him, are super sick of uber leftist policies dictating how the stories and characters go at this point, to the point that they're not even self-aware at this point. Again, they did a disservice to Monica Rambeau and even to how Carol Danvers was in the comic books. Yes, I can agree that there are some channels, especially on YouTube, that maybe go a little too close to being a little too full of it, like say Geeks and Gamers. But at the very least, Jeremy that on that channel, at least admits when he's wrong, and at the very and he does bring up good points that I a lot of times agree with. Then there's we've come to this point now where anyone who doesn't like a movie and has valid criticisms, such as me, such as him, and others in general, are broadened with the word trolls. Trolls has now become another word that, along with racist, fascist, homophobe, and so on and so forth, that I've just find used and abused. No, people. Just because someone has valid criticisms of a movie does not mean that they're a freaking troll. Perhaps, maybe, just maybe, they actually have valid criticisms about it. And while some YouTube channels may go a little too far on the attack the SJW bandwagon, at this point in time, I honestly agree with them. And hell, you can look at other channels who are, of course, minorities themselves, like Young Grippa 59, who's a far bigger expert on comic books than I am. Even Micah Curtis, who I've mentioned a couple of times, recommend him as well. Yeah, you want to label those guys as trolls, because really, some YouTubers that I've followed for years, they don't know what they're talking about anymore, whereas I now look to these guys because they actually know their shit and know when to spot the bull crap when it happens. And know the so-called people who, and the so-called SJWs don't get a pass either, especially people that think social justice is not a bad thing. Like, seriously, where have you been for years? We don't like social justice because it's just ham-fisted these days. Stan Lee and Chris Claremont, they knew how to write diverse characters because they didn't ham-fist you over it, and they certainly did not label everyone as trolls or sexist, misogynists, or racist. They told their characters naturally, without going into name calling and broadening. And while I do not disagree that there are some people that may not like Captain Marvel or any other movie featuring a character of a different gender or racial makeup, which is a shallow reason in and of itself, I agree with there. It does not mean that the majority of the people that hate this movie, me growingly so included, hate it for that very reason. Especially when many of those same people can name like several female characters of other makeups that they like. Yeah, I like Superman. And I mentioned them earlier. Wonder Woman, loved it. Alita Battle Angel, loved it. Ripley from Aliens, way better character. And that's the problem I have with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel with this movie also. She doesn't earn it. She gets the Super Saiyan powers, and it's all win for the end of the movie. And while I could probably argue that she is hampered by the Creed thing on her neck that prevents her from getting the powers for a good majority of the movie, the way they constantly promote the character, especially with the dog shit, oh, she's the inspiration for the Avengers, frankly, gives me more reason to call this character a Mary Sue, because they push aside the work of what's been set up in previous movies with other characters to do stuff. And when she gets her powers, she suddenly knows how to fly around and use them like she's had them for years, even though all she could do was just shoot fire at her hands. Even Superman, thank you, Immortal Hourglass, you just reminded me of something. Even Superman had to take a couple of hops and jumps before he learned to fly. He wasn't a master at it right away. Yeah, a lot of times he did learn what he could do in one day, but like I said, a couple of leaps. So yeah, and the whole argument that anyone who hates this movie because they're misogynist or racist or what have you is just absolutely asinine. And it's just I'm sick of it. And honestly, like I said, I did not originally want to see this movie. I really tried to distance myself from it, but due to being, but due to some personal circumstances, especially since I have a life, and sometimes I have to go and accompany people that I very care much about to help them out. I ended up seeing it, and yeah, we both found it. Yeah, we both found it mediocre. Oh yeah, Aliens pretty much gone down the toaster, gone down the trash can since Alien 3. Frankly, Predator especially, and we all know how much I love the new one. So yeah, if Captain Marvel, this version of her, ends up one punch manning Thanos, yeah, I think Endgame will be the end of it. I don't know, because I don't like what they're doing, especially since, let's be honest, Brie Larson is not nearly as charismatic and not nearly as well written. Hell, even Aelita, even when she thought she was overpowered, got her ass beat. Her original body got destroyed by one of the cyborgs, and even when she got her superior warrior body from the spaceship, she couldn't save everybody. Even Wonder Woman had problems, and somehow, yeah, it's and with the retcons, yeah, in my opinion, Captain Marvel's the last Jedi of the MCU. There's just no getting around it, and I can't recommend this movie at all. In my opinion, just look up the plot synopsis on Wikipedia and go from there, because it's frankly not worth it. It's too much. It's really a once with the plot holes, and if you're a comic book, and if you're a person who respects the much better translation from page to screen of how you would like these characters to be portrayed, like I do, then you're also gonna get a headache and a half, and I don't recommend it at all. Oh, and yeah, thanks for the compliment on the shirt, by the way. So, yeah, don't like it, don't recommend it. It's mediocre at best. And to any other who thinks that everyone who hates this movie is a troll, yeah, and you go around making fun of them and saying that, well, congratulations, you're a freaking troll too. Pot calls the kettle black, frankly. So, yeah, That's it for my review of Captain Marvel, Captain Mediocrity Squared, really. I'm gonna go put this much superior movie back on the shelf, and I'm gonna go, relax and, game a bit, and when I come back, I'll hopefully have something picked out for my next playthrough, and just pray to God Endgame is better than this and that Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and the others actually are the ones to put Thanos down, because this character, as far as I'm concerned, has not earned it. Ugh, what a piece of crap.